really know what I'm doing here, if I'm being straight with you. My granddaughter set this whole thing up for me. The camera, that little ring of light she clipped onto the laptop. She said, "Grandma, just talk. Just say what's on your mind." And then she bounced out of the room because that girl is sharp enough to know that some things only come out when nobody's watching. My name is Eleanor. Eleanor May Hartfield. I'm 90 years old and I've been pretty much planted in this chair by the window for the better part of 3 months now, watching the oak tree in the front yard go from bare sticks to full green, watching it like it owes me something, like if I stare long enough, it'll finally give me an answer. I don't sleep much anymore. Not really. And in those hours before the house wakes up, when everything's dead quiet and the light outside is that weird gray that's not quite night and not quite morning, that's when it all comes rolling back. Not like a wave crashing, more like water sneaking under a door. Slow, quiet. You can't stop it once it gets going. I've been trying to remember the last ordinary day, not the last good day, not some highlight reel moment, just ordinary. A Tuesday, the kind of day where nothing went down that you'd ever think to write in a journal, where you moved through the hours not knowing you were moving through something that was never gonna come back around. I think about that day a whole lot. I was born in 1935 in a little house in eastern Tennessee, the kind of house where the windows rattled every time the wind came off the mountain. We weren't broke in the way folks talk about broke nowadays. We just didn't have much, and we didn't know we didn't have much, and so that was fine. That was just life. My mama used to get up before anyone else. I'd hear her in the kitchen, the soft knock of the iron pan against the stovetop. Even half asleep, even as a little girl of 7 or 8, that sound meant everything to me. It meant safe. It meant today is real. It meant you're still here and so am I. I never told her that. What are you gonna say? "Hey mama, that pan sound is holding my whole world together. You just eat your eggs and head to school." That's how it went. But I still hear that sound. 90 years old. And I still hear that pan on that stovetop. She's been gone since 1971. I was 36 when she passed. I thought by then I'd already figured out how to miss somebody. Turns out you keep figuring that out your whole life. It doesn't wrap up neat. I married a man named George when I was 22. He was 25 and he had these big, careful hands. The kind of hands that fixed things without being told. A screen door that sagged, a kitchen drawer that stuck for months. He didn't make a whole big deal out of it. He just clocked that something needed doing and he did it. No fanfare, no announcement. We were married for 51 years. People hear that and they go, "Oh, how wonderful, how beautiful." And yeah, it was, but it was also just Tuesday. It was Tuesday dinners and arguments about money and one rough winter where we barely talked to each other for 6 weeks, and I still can't fully explain why. It was his laugh, which was way bigger than you'd expect from such a quiet man. It was the way he'd reach over in the car and drop his hand on mine without even glancing up from the road. Not romantic exactly, just I'm here, you're here, we're good. He died in 2003, a Wednesday morning in October. And I remember the Tuesday before that, a nothing day. He watched the evening news. I made soup. He said it needed more salt. I told him he always said that. He grinned at his bowl. That was it. That was the last ordinary day. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? You never know which one's the last one. That's the part nobody levels with you about. The ordinary days are the ones that'll wreck you later. Not the big moments, not the stuff you planned for. The ordinary ones. The Tuesday ones. Those are the ones that sneak up and hit different when you're old. We had 3 kids. Thomas, Tommy we called him until he was 40 and finally put his foot down about it. Ruth, and our youngest, Daniel, who died at 19 in a car accident on a Friday night in 1975. I'm not going to go deep on Daniel right now, because even after all these decades, there are losses that never become stories. They just stay losses. You live inside you like a stone that never gets lighter. You just get used to carrying it, that's all. What I will say is this. The week before we lost him, Daniel came home for the weekend. He was away at college, a couple hours down the road, and he just showed up on a Friday afternoon with a bag of dirty laundry and that big grin of his. No particular reason, just showed up. We had dinner. He talked a mile a minute, the way young people do when they're still figuring out who they are and they want somebody to watch them figure it out. And I was distracted. I was off in my own head thinking about something. Lord, I can't even pull up what it was anymore. Something with a neighbor, something at church, something that doesn't matter now and honestly didn't matter much then either. And I gave him maybe half my attention. He left Sunday afternoon, stood at the door with that bag, and I hugged him and I said, "Drive safe, call when you get in." He said he would. He didn't get in. And I have spent 50 years with that half listening sitting in my chest, turning it over and over. Not pure guilt. I've made a kind of peace with it, the way you have to or you won't survive. But this ache, this low, quiet ache that comes from knowing the last real conversation I could have had with my son, I only showed up halfway for. I'm not saying that to teach you something or make some kind of point. I'm saying it because it's true, and it's been true inside me for a very long time, and I'm running low on time to say true things out loud. So, after Daniel, something in me shifted, and I couldn't name it for years. I kept doing everything I was supposed to do. Got up every morning, raised Tommy and Ruth, cooked, went to church, showed up. I was present the way you can be present in your body while some part of you is somewhere else entirely, standing in a doorway, watching a boy with a duffel bag walk to his car. George used to find me sometimes, just standing at the kitchen window, not doing a thing, just standing there, zoned out. He'd come up behind me and put his hand on my back. Didn't say a word, just his hand on my back, and after a little while, I'd come back to the room. He never asked where I went. I never told him. That was a mistake. Not some big dramatic one, just a quiet, slow building one. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind you only clock way later, looking back, realizing there were hundreds of small moments where two people could have gotten closer and instead just stayed exactly the same distance apart. We were a good marriage. I want to be real clear about that. But I think now, this close to the end of things, that even good marriages have whole rooms in them that nobody ever walks into. And I wonder sometimes what would have shaken loose if we'd gone into those rooms together. If I just leveled with him and said, "George, I'm still standing at that window sometimes. I'm still there." He would have gotten it. That man understood most things without needing them spelled out. I just never said it. I kept it to myself, and then one day, there was no more chance to say it. Ruth lives out in Portland now, calls every Sunday like clockwork. She's a good daughter, careful, devoted, a little worried about me in a way she tries to hide and I try not to make a big thing of. We talk about her grandkids, the weather out in Oregon, what I've been eating. We don't talk about the stuff we're both actually thinking about. I don't know if that's her trying to protect me or me trying to protect her, or both of us just doing what people do, which is dance around the hard stuff without ever quite touching it. George passed 8 years ago. Heart, same as his father. He was 64. I sat in the front pew at my own son's funeral as an old woman, and I thought, this is not the right order of things. This is all wrong. But the order of things doesn't consult you. It just happens, and you either find a way to carry it or you don't. Most folks find a way. That's one thing I'll say for people. We are real good at finding a way through, even when we're sure we won't. Let me tell you about a morning when I was maybe 63, 64. George was still around, still healthy, still the kind of man who'd fix your screen door before you even knew it needed fixing. It was summer, real early. I woke before him, which almost never happened. He was the early bird, not me. I slipped outside to the back porch and sat in that old wooden chair we kept out there, and the yard was in that particular summer morning light. Everything so green, so still. The birds were just starting up. And I sat there and I thought, I actually remember thinking this exact thing. I should enjoy this more. I should be better at this. And then I went inside and made the coffee, and the day cranked up, and that was that. I think about that moment a lot now. Not because it was special, because it wasn't. Because I was 63 years old, sitting smack in the middle of something beautiful. I knew it was beautiful, and I still couldn't fully land in it. There was always this pane of glass between me and the actual moment, like I was watching my own life from just a little bit outside of it. I don't know when that glass showed up. I don't know if everybody's got it or just some of us. My gut says more people than would cop to it. What I know is that by the time I figured out how to bust through it, really get through it, really be inside the moment instead of just watching it, I was in my early 80s, and George was gone, and the backyard looked different without him in it. You think you've got time to learn the things you need to learn. That's the thing right there. You're always convinced there's more runway for the becoming. There's a photograph sitting on my dresser. Taken at a family reunion, must have been around 87. We're all out in Carol's backyard. My sister Carol, God rest her. George and I are standing together, not posed, just caught mid-laugh at something off to the side. I have looked at that photograph more times than I can count. And what gets me now, what I couldn't have seen then, is how alive we look. Not just happy, though we were, just alive. Like every cell in us was still humming. I didn't know that then. I didn't know that was something you could see in a person. When you're in the thick of your life, you're not thinking, I am alive right now in a way I will never be again. You're thinking about what you gotta grab at the grocery store. You're thinking about whether it's going to rain on the weekend. You're chewing over some argument from last week that you still haven't fully let go of. You're thinking about everything except the one thing that's actually true, which is that you are here. You are here, and you won't always be. I've got a few things going on with my health now. I'm not going to run through the whole list. It's not interesting, and I don't like giving my ailments more airtime than they deserve. But my body is sending a pretty clear message that we are in the final stretch, and I've decided to hear it out rather than fight it every step of the way. Because at a certain point, fighting it is just burning what's left. My doctor is a young woman, real sharp, real kind. She talks to me like I'm still all the way here, and I appreciate that more than she probably knows. A lot of people stop doing that with the very old. They soften everything up, pick easier words, and there's something behind their eyes that's saying, we're just managing you now. I don't blame them for it. I've probably done the same thing myself, back when I was younger and somebody older was on the other side of the table. You don't know what it feels like from inside until you're inside it. What it feels like is, I'm still here, still thinking. My body's old, but that doesn't make me less. I've got things in me that haven't been said yet, which is a big part of why I'm sitting here running my mouth to this camera right now. I've been sitting with what I wish I'd known. Not in that big, sweeping way people mean when they say that. Not some bumper sticker wisdom, not the thing you'd slap on a graduation card. I mean the small, specific thing. The thing that only comes from actually putting in the years and living long enough to see with your own eyes what mattered and what was just noise. Here's what keeps coming back to me. The ordinary days were the whole deal. Not the events, not the milestones, not the vacations we scraped and saved for, not the achievements that felt so massive at the time. The life, the actual life, was the Tuesday morning when nobody was performing anything for anybody. When George was behind his newspaper and I was staring out the window and the coffee was warm and the house was just quiet. That was it. That was the whole thing. And I spent so much of it waiting for the real part to kick in, waiting to feel settled, waiting till the kids were older, till the money was less tight, till things chilled out a little. There was always some reason the present moment wasn't quite the moment yet, like the real living was going to start any day now, just not quite yet. I am 90 years old, and I'm telling you flat out, there is no other moment. There never was. The waiting and the living are the exact same thing. And by the time that lands in your gut for real, you're sitting in a chair by a window, watching an oak tree, trying to piece together the last ordinary day. My mama's hands. I've been thinking about her hands a lot this week. Small, capable hands. Never soft. She worked way too hard her whole life for soft. But gentle. I can still feel her fingers moving quick and certain, braiding my hair before school every morning. I can see her hands folded in her lap at church, wrapped around her coffee cup. I gave those hands almost zero thought for most of my life. They were just her hands. They were just there, doing what hands do. And then she was gone. And for years after, I'd catch a glimpse of my own hands doing something, making biscuits, braiding Ruth's hair, and I'd see her in them. Just a flash. 1 second, gone. Now I look down at my own hands and I think about Ruth's kids and their kids. I think about what goes forward that we never know goes forward. Not the big stuff, not the stories people tell at funerals, the small physical things, the gestures, the particular way somebody holds a coffee cup, the way a laugh sounds. I won't be here to see what goes forward from me. That's just a fact, and I've made my peace with it. But I think about it. I think about what gets carried on without you even knowing it's being carried. There's one more thing I want to say, and I want to say it right because I don't want it to come out sounding like advice. I'm done with advice. I'm just saying what's been true for me in my experience after 90 years of being a person in this world. It was the people. It was always the people. Not the stuff you built, not the places you got to go, not the problems you solved or the things you were proud of. The people you stood next to while you were living your life. That's what's left at the end. That's what echoes when everything else goes quiet. I had a best friend named Vera. We met in our late 30s at a church potluck of all the random places, and we were thick as thieves for 40 years. She passed 12 years ago now, and there's a particular kind of hole that only Vera's absence makes. Not like losing George, not like losing Daniel, a whole different shape. She knew things about me that nobody else knew. Not deep, dark secrets necessarily, just things that only get known when somebody witnesses you over decades. Somebody who isn't family. Somebody who just straight up chose you over and over for no other reason than that you fit together. I've got a lot of absences now. At 90, you rack them up. They become part of the landscape, like it or not. But here's what I want to say plain. Vera and George, and my mama with her careful hands, and Daniel with that grin and his bag of dirty laundry, they're still here, inside me. Still talking, still showing up in those quiet early morning hours when the light's gray and the house is still. That doesn't make the missing any smaller, but it is something. It is not nothing. I'm getting worn out now. This talking, this camera, this whole thing takes more out of me than I want to let on. But I needed to get this down, whatever this is. I needed someone to know that I remember the last ordinary day, October. A Tuesday, best I can figure, though my memory's a little shaky on the exact date now. I made soup. George said it needed more salt. I told him he always said that. He smiled at his bowl. The next morning, he was gone, and the soup was still sitting in the refrigerator. And I stood in that kitchen for a long time, not doing a single thing, just standing there, the way I used to stand at the window, except this time there was no hand coming to rest on my back. This time I had to find my own way back to the room. I did find my way back. That's the thing about it. You find your way back. You stay in the room. You learn to carry the stone. You make something out of what's left, even when what's left is a whole lot less than what you'd have picked for yourself. And sometimes, on a good morning, when the light comes through that window just right and that old oak tree is doing its thing, sometimes it is still enough just to sit here, just to breathe, just to think quietly, I was here, I was alive. It mattered, not loud, not with any kind of fanfare, just quietly, the way most true things are. If you're still here with me, if you stuck around through all of this, then thank you. I mean that for real. Not because of the likes or the comments or any of that stuff my granddaughter's always talking about, just because you sat with an old woman for a little while and let her get out what she's been needing to say. If something in here hit close to home for you, well, you don't have to do a thing with it right now. You don't have to figure it all out today. You could just sit with it a while. Notice the ordinary day you're in right now. Look around at who's in it with you. That's all I've got. That's really all.